Well, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed may have just gone out and caused some problems for herself, and it just snowed in Montreal, so there's some snow cleaning behind me. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winnie the Westie, and we just had a big snowfall and they're doing some snow clearing on the street, so you might hear some extra noise this vlog. These are the risks and peril when your home office is your car. But there have been some updates in the Alec Baldwin shooting story, and those updates are that Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer on set of the movie Rust, where Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger of a loaded firearm that was supposed to have only dummy rounds in it and killed the director of photography Helena Hutchins and shot the director Sousa in the shoulder, she has sued the prop company and the prop company owner, and when you read this lawsuit, I think she should not have filed this lawsuit. Second Judicial District Court, County of Bernalillo, State of New Mexico, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, plaintiff versus Seth Kenny and PDQ Arm and Prop LLC defendants. Complaint for violations of New Mexico Unfair Trade Practices Act, introducing dangerous products onto movie set, strict product liability, and false label representations. Yep, I bet you didn't think that was going to be the nature of the lawsuit. Now, full disclosure as always, so you can choose to disregard anything I have to say, I am a mere Quebec attorney. I have no knowledge of New Mexico law, and I have even less knowledge of these specific provisions or laws, but my goodness, did I not think this was going to be the nature of the lawsuit. In a nutshell, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer, is suing the prop company and the prop company owner, allegedly for having provided bad product to the movie set, bad labeling in that they were supposed to have provided dummy rounds or blank rounds, but they actually provided 7 live rounds in the box of 50. But my goodness, when you read the allegations in this lawsuit, you're going to wonder how these conclusions are drawn from the allegations in the lawsuit. But first, just the overview of the parties as per the lawsuit. Nature of the case. This case arises out of a shooting that occurred on the Rust production set here in Rust that occurred on October 21, 2021 that killed Helena Hutchins and wounded Joel Sousa. And you know what? I'm going to skip over I'm going to get hit by a truck right now. I'm going to skip over the parties because it contains some addresses that I don't think we need to draw any more attention to. Bottom line, plaintiff is Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer on the set of Rust. The defendant is that arm and prop company and its owner Seth Kenny. And now the allegations. In and about August and September 2021, on a different movie set in Texas, defendant Seth Kenny enlisted Tel Reed to help train actors at a shooting range in the use of live fired rounds at a licensed range off the movie set. The training was to help the actors understand the way a firearm will recoil after live fire so that they could simulate the recoil during filming. There were never live rounds on the Texas set, but instead this instruction occurred off-site at a licensed shooting range. Following that training, Seth took the ammo can and its contents with him in his van. Tel estimated that the ammo can contained 200 to 300 live 45 Colt rounds, which included Starline Brass reloaded quote live end quote rounds. Starline Brass is a company that produces ammo brass casings that can be made into dummy, blank, or live ammunition by anyone with the knowledge and equipment to do so. The company does not itself make live rounds. Anyone with access to the dummy rounds could convert them into live rounds with the proper reloading equipment. Appreciate what Hannah Gutierrez-Reed is trying to establish with these allegations. On the one hand, she is trying to establish that there were never supposed to be any live rounds on the set of Rust, that her training with live rounds was offset on another movie set, and that the reason for which they were training with live rounds was to realize how a firearm recoils after you fire it so that they could then replicate the recoil when not firing with actual live rounds. But as we know from her attorneys, she is also going to be alleging or implying or suggesting sabotage or the possibility of sabotage, so she has to include allegations to that effect in this lawsuit to leave the door open to sabotage in case her claim of faulty product against the arm and prop company and Seth Kenny fails. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call sucking and blowing in the legal sense. As Rust armorer, Hannah was responsible for maintaining and managing operation of firearm-related movie props. As key props assistant, she was also responsible for assisting with a multitude of props duties as requested by Mrs. Zachary and production.
Duty.
The Rust script was a very, quote, gun-heavy, end quote, Western script, with guns needed on 10 of the 12 film days leading up to October 21, and gunfire on at least half of the shooting days, according to the call sheets. The gun-heavy script required Hannah to perform a significant amount of work each day as both an armorer and key props assistant. Hannah was to be paid approximately a total of $7,500 for both jobs combined. Now, when I say that this lawsuit sucks and blows in a manner that is inconsistent with actual breathing, it is because the lawsuit itself is based on the idea that the defendant defendants, the prop company and the prop company owner, provided mislabeled products, created a dangerous work environment on set, and on the other hand, Hannah is arguing, I was working 2 jobs, I was stretched thin, and oh yeah, there might have been sabotage as well. And not just that, my goodness, does Hannah Gutierrez-Reed make some allegations that make this set of Rust look like a high school drama. The cause of fallout between Seth and Hannah. On October 16, 5 days prior to the tragic shooting on the Rust set, Sarah had an accidental negligent discharge of a weapon on set, firing a blank round at her foot. Within 15 to 20 minutes of that accidental discharge, Baldwin's stunt double accidentally negligently discharged a round from his weapon inside a cabin on the set nearby, as confirmed and reported by the LA Times on November 20. Hannah confronted Sarah on her accidental negligent discharge, wanted to know what had happened, and indicated that they would need to tell production about it and that it could impact Sarah's ability to handle weapons on set. Now, we may have skipped over it in the beginning, but Sarah is Sarah Zachary. She's the prop manager, and from my understanding, she might have been Hannah's superior. So there's an issue about 2 accidental discharges on set of blank rounds, which didn't cause any damage or any harm, but accidental discharges on set are still a problematic thing, and apparently these 2 accidental discharges and what might have had to happen as a result caused some friction, allegedly, between Hannah and Seth. Seth being the owner of PDQ, the prop company that allegedly provided the blanks to the company and was apparently her mentor of sorts. This led to a heated text exchange between Seth Kenny and Hannah over Sarah's accidental negligent discharge and the reporting of it. Seth took Sarah's side and essentially told Hannah to back off and that, quote, mistakes happened, end quote, and that Hannah needed to remember that Sarah was her boss and not to, quote, push it, end quote. Hannah interpreted this as that Seth, who was called the, quote, armorer, mentor, end quote, in call sheets, wanted to sweep the security incident under the rug. The term, quote, armor mentor, end quote, does not seem to be a position that is used or understood on film sets generally. Why is this all relevant, you might be asking yourself? Good question. It's not clear why at all this is relevant, given the cause of action against the defendants is that they allegedly provided 7 live rounds in the box of ammunition, not that there were accidental discharges on set. But what it looks like here is that Hannah is suing the prop company for allegedly providing live rounds or mislabeled product and simultaneously trying to make the set of Rust look like an absolute gong show. That, and she's trying to smear the defendant Seth Kenny to make him look guilty of something, even if it's not the principal cause of action. And what of that actual text exchange between Seth and Hannah? Well, read that text exchange and see if you agree with Hannah's interpretation of it. From Seth, accidental discharges are accidents. A mistake is where the armorer provides a gun and full load ammo to be fired with a horse in the vicinity. Will you tell production about that? We learn and move on, and don't forget, she's your boss, don't push it. Excuse you? What mistakes do you think I'm making? Will I tell production about what? You think I'm some effing rat or something? You think I'm running to production to tattle? You have me effed up, Seth. If she doesn't like me when I barely said anything about it, you can come back and finish the show. I'm not going to stay where I'm a effing problem. Now, I did not start this analysis with any preconceived notions, but reading that text exchange, I'm starting to come to some conclusions on my own. But my goodness, if you thought that was bad, wait until you read these allegations. The morning of the tragedy on October 21, fellow Rust employees Sarah Zachary and Nicole Montoya were the first people in the prop trailer. Sarah was already in the prop safe retrieving the firearms when Hannah arrived at approximately 6:30 a.m. This was unusual, as Hannah was the person who typically retrieved the firearms from the safe by herself. When Hannah arrived at the prop truck that same morning, she saw a box labeled, quote, dummy rounds, 45 LC, end quote, completely full, which someone had placed on top of Hannah's equipment bag. Hannah had not seen a full box of dummy rounds in weeks, and nor was this full box on the equipment bag when Hannah had last been in the prop trailer. Upon information and belief, the dummy rounds and live rounds came from defendants. Sarah has since acknowledged in a report by the LA Times on November 20 that a new box of presumed 45 caliber long Colt, quote, dummy, end quote, rounds appeared on the set that day. Hannah exclaimed words to the effect of, quote, what is this, end quote. We have been looking for a full box of dummy rounds for weeks. Sarah was the person who had been bringing all the dummy ammo boxes onto set from defendants, but she did not respond as to where this full box had come from after Hannah made her comments. Prop assistant Nicole simply giggled in response to Hannah's questions. This is the armorer of the film saying, we just discovered a box of dummy rounds that we don't know where it came from. I asked, where did this come from? What is it? Someone just giggled and we went ahead and used it. But the next allegations really are going to add some fodder to the claims that there might be a little more to this story, because when you read these, my goodness, you're going to say this is a coincidence at the very least. Around 7:30 a.m., Hannah noted that the video camera system and app that allowed the crew to watch scenes going on in real time and stored content in the cloud, quote, Video Village, end quote, was down. As a result, Hannah was unable to view the various camera scenes and what they were filming. Video Village was always supposed to be up so that Hannah, makeup, and others on on set could see when they were needed and follow what was going on with film scenes as they were happening, for example, inside buildings. So for whatever the reason, the day of the shooting, Video Village was down such that nobody could actually see in real time what was going on in the church at the time the shooting took place. Again, what does that have to do with the nature of the claim against the defendants? I don't know, but my goodness, if proven, it is a very interesting and coincidental fact.
Well, isn't that convenient for you?
But these, in my humble opinion, are the most damning allegations, not because they are damning against the defendant, but because they could be deemed to be damning judicial admissions from the plaintiff herself. The afternoon of the tragic shooting. When the three returned from lunch a little before 1:30 p.m., Sarah and Nicole pulled the guns out of the safe, and they and Hannah carried the guns and placed them back on the cart. Hannah had to step away for a brief period and ask Sarah and Nicole to watch the guns. When she came back, she noticed that the two had wandered some feet away and the guns were unattended for perhaps 5 minutes. Hannah remembered the chamber that she believed needed to be cleaned in Baldwin's gun, and she cleaned it, and then Hannah pulled another round from the dummy box, shook it, and placed it in the chamber. Now, in my limited understanding, the shaking of the round has to do with identifying it as a dummy round or a blank round as opposed to a live round, but just appreciate what Hannah actually just admitted to here. She is the armorer on set, and she delegated to two others to watch the firearms as she went somewhere else, and when she came back, she knew that the firearm had been unattended for at least 5 minutes. How she knew 5 minutes is up to her, but she knew the weapon had been unattended for 5 minutes. What does she do? She shakes a round which she thinks to be a dummy round, inserts it into the gun, and then gives it to Alec Baldwin, knowing that that gun had been unattended for at least 5 minutes. One can appreciate that she is trying to leave open the door to sabotage that someone might have done something to that gun in the 5 minutes where it was unattended, but my goodness, as the armorer, knowing that that firearm had been unattended for at least 5 minutes and then not checking the 5 rounds in it, but just adding another one and handing it off, my goodness, some people might say that that is a problematic decision to have made. But lo and behold, it is now formally in a written pleading, so it's going to be sort of hard to take back, or it's going to be sort of hard to put the toothpaste back in the bottle, as the expression goes. To the best of Hannah's knowledge, the gun was now loaded with 6 dummy rounds. How do you know that? You just admitted that the gun had been unattended for at least 5 minutes when the two people who were supposed to be watching it wandered away. How do you know that it's now loaded with 6 dummy rounds when that gun had been unattended for 5 minutes and you did not check the 5 existing rounds in that gun? But now let's walk back from that door that we opened a crack just to leave open the possibility of sabotage and get back to the claim against the defendants. Indeed, defendants, as suppliers of prop ammunition to the Rust set, sold, distributed, and advertised its props as dummy ammunition and not live rounds. Hannah relied upon and trusted that defendants would only supply dummy prop ammunition, only blanks, and no live rounds were ever to be on set. Assistant Director Halls told Hannah in her earpiece in a rushed fashion that Baldwin's gun was needed inside the church. Production was behind several hours because the camera crew had quit the night before. Apparently, this was also the cause of Video Village being down on October 21. The lawsuit then goes on to allege that Assistant Director Halls handed the firearm to Alec Baldwin, declared it a cold gun, and we all know what happened next. Hannah, however, has to add a couple of allegations to the effect that she would have done things differently had she been allowed inside the church. Had Hannah been called back in, she would have re-inspected the weapon and every round again and instructed Baldwin on safe gun practice with the cross draw, as was her standard practice on set and under circumstances where 1. Baldwin did not respond to Hannah's request on October 15 to schedule cross draw training, and 2. The gun had been out of her possession for 15 minutes. Hannah would never have let Baldwin point the weapon at Helena as part of standard safe gun practices. Apparently, no one inside the church stopped Baldwin from doing so, including A.D. Halls. The lawsuit then goes on to describe the shooting from Hannah's perspective. She's outside the church, she hears a shot go off, she runs in, says what happened, she sees Helena and Joel on the ground bleeding, which is going to be something of a problem for Alec Baldwin's version of events, where he didn't seem to think he knew what happened to Helena. He thought she had just fainted, but whatever. That's what happened there. And then it goes on to suggest that Seth Kenny apparently was playing some sort of improper role with the investigation. After the police had arrived on October 21 and before Helena had been pronounced deceased, Seth made a call to a police officer in Bullhead City, Arizona, named Officer Troy Teskey. Officer Teskey is best friends with Tel Reed. During that call from Seth to Troy at 4:03 p.m. on October 21, just hours after the shooting and before Helena had been pronounced deceased, Seth stated words to the effect to Troy that Hannah had messed up. How and why Seth came to this utmost immediate conclusion that Hannah had, quote, messed up, end quote, and offered it up unsolicited to Troy is neither understood or yet to be explained or clarified. The lawsuit then goes on to make some allegations which, as far as I'm concerned, are pure drama, but just to the effect that Seth Kenny was allegedly putting pressure on Hannah to drop her sabotage theory, that allegedly he was encouraging Hannah to throw Assistant Director Halls under the bus, to say that Halls had bullied her and not allowed her to do her job properly, whatever. This is like a bunch of people trying to save themselves on a sinking ship. And then towards the end of the lawsuit, Hannah suggests that Seth had access to the safety boxes on set, despite the fact that he said that he was never on set. I don't know what all of this is supposed to prove, but you can read the allegations and come to your own conclusions of relevance as you deem fit. Defendant Seth Kenny has denied ever being on the set of Rust, but somehow had the code to the prop truck safe that Hannah had purchased for production. Hannah never gave him the code. Seth was on set supposedly for the first time ever when the warrant was served on the prop truck 6 days after the shooting on October 27, 2021 to help the sheriffs get into the safe. It is unknown who gave him the code to the production safe. Contrary to truth, upon information and belief, Seth told law enforcement that it was his prop safe. It was the production safe, and Hannah purchased it and has a copy of the receipts to prove this. Alright, and let's just finish up this mess of a lawsuit with the counts. Count 1, violation of the New Mexico Unfair Trade Practices Act. Defendants' acts as described above constitute unfair methods of competition, and they constitute unfair or deceptive acts or practices in the conduct of commerce, both of which violate the New Mexico Unfair Practices Act. Count 2, creation of a dangerous condition, strict product liability. Defendants distributed boxes of ammunition purporting to contain dummy rounds, but which contained a mix of dummy and live ammunition to the Rust production. Defendants knew or should have reasonably believed that the ammunition they supplied to the Rust production would be used in the filming of scenes involving the discharging of firearms. Defendants in turn failed to provide any warning as to this potentially dangerous condition that they created. Hannah and the entire Rust movie crew relied on the defendants' misrepresentations that they provided only dummy ammunition. Count 3, strict product liability, false and deceptive product labels, and false and material misrepresentations. And count 4, breach of contract. Alright, so that is the mess of the lawsuit, and although I don't know anything about New Mexico law or these specific provisions of law, I just read this lawsuit and I ask myself how the conclusions sought in this lawsuit follow from the allegations contained in this lawsuit, and my goodness, does this lawsuit contain allegations that I would have never made as an attorney and that I would have never allowed my client to make as my client. When you suck and blow, oftentimes you just end up gagging and choking, and that is what I think happened with this lawsuit. I think Hannah Gutierrez-Reed made some allegations here to cover her butt, but I think they're actually going to get her in a little bit more trouble in other circumstances. To be seen, to be determined, but if you like my videos, you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
If you want to support the channel, all of the support links are in the pinned comment. We've got some great merch. Robert Barnes and I do weekly streams every Sunday. We do weekly streams with a guest every Wednesday called The Sidebar. If you want to find us and support us on Locals, where supporters get lots of exclusive content, you can find us at
VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com.
All of my content is also on Rumble, which has recently merged with Locals, and as a result, you can find a nifty little widget on the Rumble page, which will bring you directly to our Locals page. But more important than anything, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know your vlog. Peace out.